and there's a lot of buzz that AI will automate accounting as such. Also, there's a heavy investment of AI in accounting firms. How about PKF getting ready for the AI disruption?
See, AI is the future, correct? Every other firm, if you're not investing in technology, you're gonna fall behind. So AI is gonna make your life easier. It's gonna bring in efficiency in your work. It's not gonna replace humans.
Audit versus tax. Which one would you select and why?
Tax is something kind of a seasonal business. They have, similar to India, every country has that need to file their taxes, correct? Again, in taxes, there are different forms. We do taxes for individuals, partnerships, corporate, private foundations, non-for-profits, etc. Correct? So it all depends whether, somebody is more inclined towards understanding different tax laws versus understanding different US GAAP. Cross-cultural communication is equally important.
So what do you mean by this cross-cultural?
So cross-cultural communication is something, people should understand how to communicate. If I want to put an example, like, as India, we have around, so many different states, different cultures across different states. Yeah. Correct? There is a different way of communicating in Mumbai versus Hyderabad versus Chennai. When I'm talking about cross-culture, I'm talking about altogether a different kind of communication between India and US.
Hi everyone, welcome to Brains Behind Billions podcast powered by Simandar Education, and I am your host CACPS Ripal Jain. And today we have one of our very esteemed guests whose journey is nothing but remarkable. He started off his journey with just being a fund administrator at Morgan Stanley to becoming one of the first employee of PKFO Connor Davis, and then going on to become the equity partner at PKFOD India. His journey is nothing but remarkable. He started off as an employee, as fund associate at Morgan Stanley, to becoming the first employee in PKFO Connor Davis in India. And then he went on to become the first equity partner and the managing director at PKFOD India. This is the 26th largest accounting firm in the US. Welcome to the show, Sumit Agarwal. It's an honor to have you at our podcast.
Thank you, Sripal, for bringing me to this podcast. I really appreciate all the efforts put in by Simandar and you. Thank you.
So Sumit, we have seen you scaling up from your tax services during COVID, and then scaling up to the audit with almost just 22 employees. PK have grown substantially. So before we go on to the leadership and the way you have managed PKF, we just wanted to understand how's the journey has been and why did you get into this profession, because you're into the fund administration. So how all this started?
Okay, so that's a very good question because not many of the CPA firms are into fund administration. But PKF O'Connor Davis, we are one of the few CPA firms who also cater to fund administration as one of the domains we cater to under our financial services division.
Okay.
So my journey in fund administration, as you rightly put forward, started off in 2007. Okay, wherein I was I got selected during my campus placement with Morgan Stanley. So my journey started in 2007. If you want to understand my story, I come from a business-oriented family, and a service industry or profession was never a part of my career horizon, I want to put it that way. So what started off as might be a 1 year or a 2 year journey with Morgan Stanley, ended up with 4 years spending with Morgan Stanley. It was a very enriching experience for me, to be honest with you. I learned a lot of things. The idea was always to get into a corporate environment, a corporate world, learn some professionalism and try to bring that into my own family business. Okay, so that was the overall idea. But somehow I loved being at Morgan Stanley. I still, cherish my time at Morgan Stanley. Whatever professionalism, whatever leadership qualities, whatever technical know-hows, I know as of now in terms of fund administration is all thanks to my foundation with Morgan Stanley. So Morgan Stanley would always have a soft corner in my place, in my heart, and I want to thank Morgan Stanley for whatever they have inculcated in me. So my journey, after fund administration, basically I'm associated with PKF O'Connor Davis since 2011. Okay. From the time I left Morgan Stanley, so I joined my family business, and then I got in touch with a senior partner in PKF O'Connor Davis.
Okay.
My family business was already a well-oiled machinery. So there was no value addition what I could have done to my family business. So that is where I was saying whatever I've learned in Morgan Stanley, absolutely, I did not want that talent to be wasted. So that is where I got in touch with one of the senior partners with PK O'Connor Davis. They they like the idea of we establishing something for them in India, and that is how my journey started in 2011 with PK O'Connor Davis.
So this is very interesting. So you first did at Morgan Stanley, then came into the business, and then you thought there is no nexus, and then came back to the accounting profession. So did you even imagine, Sumit, that 18 years, folks, Sumit's experiences into the fund administration? Did you think this journey would be so long, and how did you kind of survive? Because there's so much of work pressure in this field. So how did you overcome all these patterns?
So I would like to give that credit to two of my mentors. One is Mr. Mark Rinaldi, who was the partner with financial services with PKF O'Connor Davis,
Okay.
and Mr. Kevin Kidd, who is a managing partner and now executive chairman with PKF O'Connor Davis. So these are the two people I really, I really look up on them, and they were the two people who helped me in establishing everything, a single, step-by-step process of establishing PKF O'Connor Davis India, and they had a great confidence. They showed a great confidence in me, and which is how I was able to transform only employee firm PKF O'Connor Davis India to almost around 220 to 25 folks as of now. Catering to all the segments, right from fund administration to tax to audit to BSG to valuations, etc. Whatever PKF O'Connor Davis US currently offers are being, all those services are also being, worked upon from India as well.
So we see, Sumit, that PKF is expanding in many locations. So they're already there in Hyderabad, they're in Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Bangalore as well. But we just wanted to understand, like, how did you come to know about PKF? So you said you were working in Morgan Stanley.
Right.
So how did you get in touch with the US team and how this entire idea emerged? So did you convince them?
So basically, through one of my acquaintances, okay?
Okay.
So they knew one of the senior partners, as I mentioned, Mr. Mark Rinaldi, and that is how I got in touch with them. And, they were already looking out for someone in India who can help them, run their operation, fund administration operations. So
Okay.
right from 2011 to around onset of COVID, we were only concentrating on fund administration. Okay, with around, as you mentioned, around 2022 employees. Okay, so after the success of fund administration on the onset of COVID, that is where the leadership asked me, they wanted to experiment with tax services as well. Because most of our competitor firms already had their presence in India.
Okay.
So that is how, they told me that they want to establish tax practice. That is where we started as a pilot. We recruited pilot batch of 4 employees.
Oh,
Okay, but then COVID happened and it was chaos everywhere, correct?
exactly.
But we as a firm we very much invest in our employees. So we were very determined. We told them like once the chaos ended, right around July, August, September 2021 or 2020, right? That is where we started receiving work. In fact, out of those 4 employees, 2 or 3 of them were sent to US for the training and onboarding as well. Okay, so as a firm, we are very much invested. We very much invest in our employees, and on a yearly basis, like almost 30 or 40 people from India, they go to US to learn the PKF O'Connor Davis way of doing the business, interact with the clients, interact with the managers, directors, or partners with whom they work. Correct. So that we build a collaboration. We like for us, the entire team is a global team. We do not differentiate between India and US.
Okay. So this is not more like an outsourcing stuff. This is more like an integration of the
India and US employees, absolutely.
Okay. So for people who are new to fund administration, Sumit, so what do you mean by fund administration and hedge funds and all this?
Okay, so you can look at hedge fund as a kind of a mutual fund. Okay, how mutual fund has a NAV, net asset value, like per unit, correct? Okay, so if you want to subscribe to a mutual fund, you need to buy units at the current NAV, correct? So similarly, hedge funds has a NAV. Okay, so but generally what happens, the major difference between hedge funds and a mutual fund is hedge funds are generally catering to high net worth individuals. The minimum subscription size can be $1 million to $5 million to $10 million. So it's nothing but it is similar to mutual funds. Hedge funds are basically funds wherein you invest your money. The fund manager takes care of your money. They invest in different asset classes and they give you returns.
Exactly. Okay. So, and what about the fund administrators?
So fund administrators are nothing but the official books of accounts for hedge funds.
Okay.
So basically, in order to create transparency as an independent third-party administrator. The hedge funds, for the benefit or for the benefit of the investors, they have to appoint a separate third-party administrators who work independently and prepare their books.
Okay, so these are the guys who prepare the prepare the statement of accounts of hedge funds.
Exactly, and we the fund administrators are also responsible for it starts off with booking of trades, reconciliation with prime broker or custody, investor allocations. There are different terminologies like management fee, carried interest, and on a quarterly or a monthly basis, as the case may be, the fund administrators are the ones who issues capital account statements to the investors. So what does capital account statement means, you would say? So capital account statements are nothing but your statement of account for an investor. Oh, this your opening capital. This is what I had invested. Okay, this is the P&L I have got, and this is my ending balance, and these are the returns on an investment.
So मैं why इसका इतना demand क्यों है इंडिया में? So why so many hedge fund clients? Because we see a lot of the clients which are the auditor, basically hedge funds, and they are very comfortable in outsourcing this. Also,
Absolutely. Look at
what is the
the
attribute?
look at the humongous market of hedge funds, correct? So you're talking about hedge funds, but now the markets have shifted their focus to hedge funds, private equity, foundation, trust, correct? Real estate. So there are gambit of other kind of asset classes where investors can park their money. And
Correct.
okay, so it's like if you see most of the hedge, we are a CPA firm, correct? And we have fund administration as one of the services. But there are lot of other full-fledged fund administrations in the market, correct? Fund administrators. We talk about the Morgan Stanleys of the world, the Citcos, State Street, correct? So those are hardcore fund administrators. And considering the humongous market throughout the world, you have good quality employees available in India, educated people available in India, all the technology available in India. Definitely, it makes sense, correct, to outsource everything to India.
So hedge fund कितना $1 billion industry है? मतलब if our audience wants to know कि मतलब how big is this industry?
I have no idea. We can this.
So it might be $1 billion easily.
Into trillions of dollars.
Okay. So means how do we differentiate like hedge funds versus private equity?
Again, hedge funds, generally speaking, hedge funds would generally invest in all listed equity.
Okay.
Okay, it can be multi-currency. They can invest anywhere in the world. Okay, or they might invest in listed equity. They might invest in bonds. Credit default swaps, futures, options, etc. Generally, okay, and private equity would invest in private companies.
Okay.
Correct. So basically, hedge funds, both are risky, but in terms of definitely private equity are for more mature investors, and that are more riskier because those are not listed. Some of the money can straight away become zero.
The premium expectations is more.
The expectations are also more, but the private equity is more for a more mature investor and for, I would say, a more richer class than hedge funds.
So why did you select in fund administration? Because you started off with Morgan Stanley. So what made you to get into Morgan Stanley, and why fund administration?
So like a typical when you're doing your MBA, correct, you have certain aspirations, correct? So my aspirations was not into I need to get into a particular field. My aspiration was always to get into a more bigger firm. Okay, so when Morgan Stanley, when we were and when our placement committee announced that we are Morgan Stanley coming into our campus, I definitely grabbed that opportunity because for me, as I mentioned, like it was never my intention to work throughout the life. I always wanted to get into the family business, correct?
Right.
Okay, so this was just a stint of 1 or 2 years, which I initially thought so. So in order to spend around a year or two, I always wanted to, and that was my aspiration. I always wanted to get into a more bigger firm than than a profession kind of thing. So that is when Morgan Stanley came in, and in fact, they took almost 14 to 15 candidates applied, and I along with one other person were the only 2 people who got selected in Morgan Stanley from my campus.
So Sumit, how is it like you were in the business? So why did you not continue with the business and again jumped into the accounting profession?
So it's a good question, and a lot of people ask me that. To be honest with you, I would say that I was lucky enough. My parents backed me. Okay, so they clearly told me. My dad clearly told me that's absolutely fine. If you want to continue doing what you are doing, the more important thing is you should enjoy what you are doing. Correct. If you are enjoying what you're doing, your business or your work is paying you well to earn a good standard of living, and if you are enjoying it, absolutely go ahead and do that, and that's what ultimately happened.
So how do you see, Sumit, like we have big fours like Deloitte, EY, KPMG, and PwC. So why should a professional or student join PKF? So what is PKF doing? What is PKF's culture? Why do you think that students should go into the mid firms than the big fours?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say that for the last 4 or 5 years, the concept of mid-sized firms have come around. Correct. Initially, if you talk about 7 years, 8 years down the line, it was only big fours. Correct, in India. And I would say that the main advantage what students can learn in big four is end-to-end work. Generally, the gamut of services what big four offers are so huge, correct, that it becomes very difficult for big fours as well to interest an associate to completely rely on an associate for such a big project. Correct? And what mid-sized firms do, on contrast, is we have small clients as well, we have medium clients as well, and we have large clients as well. So generally, what happens whenever an associate or a senior associates get associated with firms like us, okay, we have small funds or small clients to give it to them, so they can understand the entire gambit of services right from start to end.
So they can learn more in that.
Absolutely. And also they get opportunities, to interact with their counterparts in US as well, which very few firms offer.
So it's more like a client-facing role, and
Not client facing. When I talk about counterparts, I'm talking about the managers and the partners they interact with.
And one more thing, you also said that they get an opportunity even to travel overseas.
Yes. So as a firm, again, what differentiates PKF O'Connor Davis as compared to other firms, we give a lot of opportunity to our employees to travel to US for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, okay, for training purposes, to interact with their colleagues whom they work with every day in and day out. You might interact with them through Teams or Zoom, daily, but once you meet them personally, it creates altogether a different kind of aura among yourself. Correct. So definitely it helps in productivity. It helps in day-to-day work environment as well once they come back. Correct. So that is something, as a firm, we have been very open right from the start to invest in our employees by sending them to US.
So we hear a lot from a lot of the employees that Sumit is a fantastic leader. So what makes you different, Sumit? I know you're very simple and very humble. Many of them even the leadership, a lot of the different firms talk about you. So what is one unique quality of Sumit which makes him very unique?
I would not say something unique about Sumit. I would generally say that I perceive that leaders should be approachable. Okay, this is what, generally, if any associates or senior associates want to, talk to me, I clearly tell them it's an open door policy as far as PKF O'Connor Davis is concerned. And I would not say that it is only with me. All the leadership, it flows from top to bottom. Okay, that is how, PKF O'Connor Davis is built on. Culture, family, correct? So it's right from the executive chairman, Mr. Kevin Keane, to me. Correct. It has flown from top to bottom. I've seen how they operate in US.
So it's not a hierarchical model.
No, absolutely no. So that is where even associates and senior associates, can talk to me, come to my office, and I'm always approachable. Yeah, because we are in the service industry. We are in people's kind of a atmosphere. Correct. We deal with them day in and day out. Correct. We are here because of them. Correct. And a particular person, that is the approach I follow. A particular person can grow only to a particular extent, but together you can grow. There are no limits to your growth if you grow together. So that is what I.
Sumit, like if you're too approachable, people could come up with admin questions. Also, how do you manage that?
That's a very good question, and that happens regularly as well. So then again, we have different people managing. Admin, HR is there, correct? So I talk to them. I tell them that I will please reach out to so and so, and definitely
It's more about delegation.
yeah, that's more about delegation, correct? But at least they are satisfied that they were able to express their thoughts to me. Whether I was able to resolve or not, that is a different story. But at least I was approachable. I was ready to spend time with them, give time to them. Whether I was able to understand their problem, at least 50% of the problem is solved. That is my experience.
So Sumit, there is a saying that, not saying, I would say it's a Wall Street Journal article that 300K accountants have left the profession. So it is obviously first is because they have got many of them are getting retired, and second obvious reason is that accounting as an industry is becoming very tough to survive because it's too much of work pressure and all. So how is PKF4D is planning, and how are you seeing the trend now? And with private equity coming up in the accounting industry, so how is this entire dynamic playing out?
To be honest, it all depends on firm to firm, different strategies. Each firm has their own strategy. Okay. I see the trend again changing. I was in US couple of months back, and we were discussing the same topic, and it seems that the scenario a little bit changed this year, where we see a lot of students again enrolling for a lot of accounting degrees in the colleges.
Okay.
Might be the last 2 years there were a lot of debate going on that there are hardly any accountants coming up, and the salaries have gone up to a great extent. So might be that has become like a stick to the new generation, that they are getting new salaries. The salaries are going up, and they've again started enrolling for the accounting jobs. But again, there is a shortage of accountants in US, and that is the reason you see every other CPA firm opening up their captive or outsourcing their work to India.
And we also were discussing about captive and outsourcing. So what do you think in India now the future will be more about GCCs or outsourcing? And how do we differentiate? What is the difference between, for an audience to understand, what's the difference between GCC and outsourcing?
I would say that going forward it will be more on GCCs rather than outsourcing.
And what is a GCC? Like if
So
somebody
GCC, GCC is nothing but you set up your own captive in India, and it's like most of your 50 to 60% of your work happens in India, and US is more of a coordinator between yourself and the client.
Okay.
So it's like a global capability center where you're opened up a big center in India. Most of your work happens from India or wherever you're opening your GCCs. Correct. And I will tell you why the future is GCC is the future as far as India is concerned. So first of all, with the ever growing increase in the cost in India as well, correct, it will be very difficult for smaller CPA firms to establish their GCCs in India. Correct. Only firms with a decent size of revenue will be able to afford GCCs in India. And a lot of the smaller firms, they generally used to or are outsourcing their work to India.
Exactly.
Okay, so with the onset of private equity players coming into the accounting world, correct? So consolidation, a lot of consolidation is happening in the US markets as well, correct? Because once the private equity players come in, again the focus is on growth. So the growth can be organic versus inorganic. So when we are talking about inorganic growth, it's consolidation wherein you are doing M&As or you are acquiring smaller CPA firms. Okay, so the smaller CPA firms, I talk about anywhere between $5 million to around $50 million in revenue. Correct? Those are being acquired by other accounting firms which has private equity investors. Correct? So the model of outsourcing work to other players in India would eventually go out, because if the smaller firms are acquired by big players, they already have their GCCs established in India. So why would once they have been acquired, why would they want their work to be outsourced, since they have their own GCCs in India?
And that would also increase to the employment opportunities in India.
Absolutely. If you're growing, right? If your client base is increasing, you require more employees. You require more people to work on them. So definitely there is great potential as far as India is concerned.
No, but with AI coming up, and there's a lot of buzz that AI will automate accounting as such. So Sumit, how do you think, like now that you're telling that private equity is coming up, consolidating all the firms, they're investing huge, they're buying a lot of the firms, and also there's a heavy investment of AI in accounting firms. And how about PKF getting ready for the AI disruption?
See, AI is the future, correct? Every other firm, every other, if you're not investing in technology, correct, you are gonna fall behind, correct? So AI is gonna make your life easier. It's gonna bring in efficiency in your work. It's not gonna replace humans. Correct. Ultimately, there has to be a human to give a prompt, to prepare a prompt for the AI to give you output.
Okay.
Correct. So it cannot do anything independently.
Exactly.
I would say that decades ago, when computers were invented, there were a lot of saying that now computers have come in. What would happen to accounting industry? Like computers would completely take over the accounting industry. There won't employees won't be required. But nothing changed. It brought in efficiency, Okay, it brought in discipline, and that is what AI would do. So it is very important for employees or new generation of kids on the block to upskill themselves with new technology.
So,
People with who are not upskilling themselves in new technologies would ultimately are the ones who would get replaced by AI.
so the Sumit, would it be like with AI rising and all, would graduate or CPAs should see correction in salaries also, because there's so much of expectation that the moment I pass CPA or a US chartered accountancy, or if I'm even an Indian chartered accountant, I should be paid 12 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs. So do you think that that also will get go for a toss and they'll have to correct?
I don't think so. Again, it depends on the competition or the market scenarios, correct? The more CPA firms you have in India, the more the competition. So it's always a demand and supply situation kind of thing. Unless and until the demand is more than the supply, the salaries are gonna be high. So ultimately, it all depends. Again, every segment or every industry has their periods, correct? It's always kind of a bell curve kind of thing, correct? So in terms of accounting industry, in terms of CPA industry, I would say that we are right on the iceberg, right on the tip as far as bell curve is concerned. So I do see some consolidation happening, but not to a great extent. Nothing to worry for the new employees or new students.
So, as why I'm telling Sumit this, because firms these days are becoming very choosy in picking up grads. So they're not hiring freshers like they used to hire previously. So they're being very selective. So somewhere, if freshers are coming with lower salary expectation, is there an opportunity for them to get absorbed? Is that what the understanding is, or do you think that has nothing to do with all these things?
I don't think so. I don't think so. There is anything related or correlation to that. I would say that it all depends on firm to firm. There are certain firms who want to hire only qualified people with some experience. There are certain firms who want to hire non-qualified people as well. So it all depends, the strategy of the firm, how they want to proceed. Or there might be certain groups within the firm who have a specialized requirement. A valuation group might have a requirement that they want their employees to become a CFA, or they would only hire people with CFAs. Again, it depends on the kind of work which is there within each organization and the kind of work they want to outsource it to India. Correct. So there has to be a correlation, or there has to be a skill match with the work which is being sent to India. So it all depends on firm to firm what kind of employees or what kind of qualification they are looking at.
So Sumit, tell me, like now we are partnered up with PKF for CPA training and EA training as well. So why did you think that we should have a policy where we sponsor for CPA, because you yourself are not CPA? So why did you wanted to promote this qualification into your firm?
So PKF Quality is a CPA firm. Correct. So definitely, as I mentioned, we as a firm, we want to invest in our people. We want our people to continuously upskill themselves. Correct. So we encourage all our employees to become a CPA, and that is where our educational reimbursement policy is one of the best in the industry. We 100% reimburse their CPA or EA cost.
Okay, okay. So Sumit, tell me audit versus tax, because you have been into fund administration throughout. So if given a chance, and which one would you select and why? And why do you recommend student to go either for audit or for tax?
For me, like both are equal, to be honest with you. Correct. It all depends on individual's choice. Correct.
So how should a student decide that should he go to audit or should he go to tax first? Second, should he go to mid firm or should he go to big four?
Okay. Let me answer the first question: audit versus tax. Again, tax is something kind of a seasonal business. They have, similar to India, every country has their debt to file their taxes. Correct. Again, in taxes there are different kind of forms. We do taxes for individuals, partnerships, corporates, private foundations, non-for-profits, etc. Correct. So it all depends whether somebody is more inclined towards understanding different tax laws versus understanding different US GAAP. Correct. So it all depends.
On the interest
of individual. If they are more interested in, talking about numbers, crunching numbers, understanding the balance sheet, understanding the assets and liabilities. Correct. Then audit might be of interest for them. And if they are more interested in understanding the different tax laws, correct, deductions, correct, how to file a tax return, correct. So they should select tax. The best thing would be a lot of organization, including organizations like us. We do provide an internship program for 3 months.
Okay.
So the best thing is, during the internship program,
They can figure out.
very well figure out, what is of interest to them, and then accordingly take the decision.
That's a fantastic approach, right? So internship could be a great element for them to decide where they want to eventually
Correct.
get into. Now, Sumit, how do you see accounting as an industry in next 5 years, or especially fund administration in next 5 years? What do you think? What would happen now in this industry?
I would say that it's an ever evolving industry. I do not see any downside to this industry, to be honest with you. As the economies are growing, economics are blooming, correct, there's gonna be more, the purchasing parity or the purchasing power of an individual increases, correct. So they would have more resources in terms of more financial power to invest, so where is ultimately where the money goes into the economy, correct. And if the economy grows, lot of new funds would be established, enhanced funds, private equity funds, correct, more money would be pumped into this
So
environment.
this industry looks to be very
Absolutely,
everlasting.
absolutely. There can be some hiccups in between, but that's fine. That's what everyone has experienced, correct?
So this looks more like a recession-free career.
To some extent.
To some extent. Okay. So how is Sumit like if a student wants to start on the fund administration journey? So should he go for an MBA? Should he go for a CA? Should he go for a CPA? What could be his ideal start after BCom?
To be honest, all the three professions can be great. It all depends. Okay, I've seen a lot of colleges, a lot of universities have introduced fund administration as part of their curriculum now.
Okay.
So this is very great. Okay, so it at least gives them basic knowledge what fund administration is. It
Exactly. Like how a priority would
exactly how does it operate, or might be some jargons which they only learned in the textbooks. At least they get to know what does that mean in terms of investor allocation. What is the limited partner? What is a general partner? What are different kind of hedge fund? What are standalone funds? What are master feeder structure? Correct. What are limited partners? What is a management fee? What is an incentive fee? So at least they get some basic knowledge as part of their curriculum. So as soon as they land a job, they are not like, what is this all about? At least they have some basic knowledge, and they can be, trained, and they can become productive, within, a month or so.
So what skills that professionals should polish themselves in the coming next 5 years?
I would say that, being in the service industry and we catering to a lot of our clients in US, communication is something I feel that, people should seriously take into that. And also as part of the curriculum, I would say that cross-cultural communication is equally important.
So what do you mean by this cross-cultural?
So cross-cultural communication is something, people should understand how to communicate. If I want to put an example, like, we as India, we have around, so many different states, different cultures across different states.
Exactly.
Correct. There is a different way of communicating in Mumbai versus Hyderabad versus Chennai. So, and when I'm talking about cross culture, I'm talking about altogether a different kind of communication between India and US. How to greet them. Okay. How to communicate with them.
The culture training.
Cultural training kind of thing, because there are a lot of miscommunications which happens between India and US. So that has to be avoided. So if we can put some basic cross-cultural etiquettes, okay, that will be very important, and it should help students. So as soon as they enter or they put their foot into the corporate life, they already know the basic etiquettes.
Sumit, when we see from the professional's perspective, communication is obviously one of the best parameter which you spoke about, and cultural training is something many of them are lacking.
Correct.
Because that is one of the biggest part. And what about Excel, Power BI, and AI and all? So do you think?
I would say that basic knowledge about Excel is very important. Correct. All the remaining things can be coached and trained. During training programs which all organizations like us generally have. Correct. Those can be polished. Those can be taught, or that can be even learned during the on-job trainings as well.
Okay.
But definitely, a person or a student with those skill sets would be definitely looked upon differently during the interview process. So you would always have an upper hand as compared to other individuals.
So how is it so with that in accounting still we are talking about long hours and all? So what do you think? Would we be able to reduce those hours with the usage of AI? Do you think that the productivity will improve, or will we still have such long working
No,
hours?
definitely with the onset of AI, definitely, as I mentioned, it is never gonna replace humans, but it will bring in efficiency in the processes. So once efficiency is brought in, definitely the long hours will definitely come down.
So that's a good news to the accounting industry. So with AI, obviously the work pressure should go down, not dramatically, but at least to a certain
And
extent.
at the same time, okay, all the trivial jobs, monotonous jobs, that will be taken over by AI, and the employees will be more focused on more challenging and complex work.
So, but how do you see, Sumit, that if you're telling that number of hours would go down, because R as an industry is a time and material model. So if AI tried to reduce the number of hours, don't you think client would start negotiating with you and pay lesser fees, or how would you work out?
I would say that I don't. That's a misconception. It all depends on what value you are adding to your client. Okay, as I mentioned, all the trivial jobs, all the small monotonous jobs will be taken over by AI, and the employees would be more into solving more complex problems. So that is where it comes into. If you are able to add value to your clients, no client would be negotiating the fees.
So the nature of job will undergo a change,
Yes.
but the job itself will not go off.
Perfectly.
And that also would not translate into some gains for clients to negotiate.
Correct.
So what you're telling, because still you're adding value to the table, there's no room for negotiation from the client's perspective.
Correct.
For them also it's easy because they're getting the value addition. to that
Exactly,
extent,
exactly.
right? So but we wanted to even understand that if that's the entire game, so how would an employee kind of perceive this in an AI based environment? So what is the kind of work they do? So like suppose I pass CPA, so when I'm there in PKF, so how does a day of a CPA or an NDA looks like in PKF? Say day one, first 30 days, what does it happen? So for the viewers who are watching us, what kind of work we do? Like मतलब काम क्या करते हो आप CPA बनने के बाद audit में tax में?
Okay, so let me give you an example. On the very first day, the employee comes in, he is being onboarded by the HR, he would undergo orientation, different process. So generally the first day, goes into, as in PKF Operative is how it works. On the very first day, once he has gone through the entire orientation and onboarding process, we generally give him a buddy, we assign him a buddy.
Okay.
Okay. So buddy is assigned. So what happens? Any questions he or she has related to any applications, any work related, or any firm related issues or anything, they can always go to their buddy and ask them. So buddy also takes them to a lunch, so that it's more about making them feel of the organization.
Exactly.
Okay. So this is how it happens, and then from the second day, depending on groups to groups or in which field they are working, there go trainings. So it's a trainings are a mix of in-person training as well as virtual trainings. So we have lot of videos documented. So they go through. We have a lot of subscriptions which we have taken. So they go through the training materials. They also undergo in-person training as well. Correct. So I would say the first 10 days is generally spent in understanding the PKF upon a days of working, because again, although he or she might already have an experience, correct, but each organization have their own set of work papers, own processes, correct. So it's more about getting into the process, understanding our way of working, and the initial 10 days is this, and then after 10 days they are they are put into a team which they were recruited for. The depending on the designation, the manager or the supervisors take them as part of the team, and then they are put onto a project depending on their experience, or that's how the on-job training starts from the very day.
And so which one do you think in audit is, do you have a concept called as good over bad over? Do you think in audit everything is a learning ship, on whether it be a listed company work or an unlisted company? End of the day, you only eventually learn. So do you segregate like that, or how do you kind of?
Again, definitely, lot of listed, if you're talking about listed versus non-listed, so there is a larger amount of scrutiny and compliance related to listed companies. So any new employee or any associate who join cannot directly put it to a audit which is for a listed
Very
company.
complex.
Correct, exactly. So it all depends. So again, that is where the role of managers or directors play is very important, wherein they know that which resources needs to be put on which projects.
So do you think, Sumit, as a CPA, they can sign for clients here in India?
Yes, they can sign, but again, most of the mid-sized firms like us, they do not do that as of now.
Okay.
But definitely, in terms of taxes is something, we have a long-term vision. Might be in next 4 or 5 years, we might be able to do that from India. So
Okay.
as a firm, I'm talking.
So you spoke a lot about leadership as such. So what is that one leadership quality which you think that every leader should possess?
I would say that, approachable, being humble. These are the two main, qualities every leader should have. Once you become a leader, people should be able to approach you. There might be certain things they want to share only with you, correct? They should feel connected. They should feel that a leader is there to take care of them. Okay? If they have any problem, if they are in a situation where they require help, firm as well as the leader is there to help them. I would say that okay, money plays a very important role, but how connected you are with your employees, whether they feel like a family working in the organization, they spend more time in the office than at home. Correct. So it is very important that you remain connected with them, not only financially but also emotionally as well. So that plays a very important role. So ultimately, employees look at the entire package what they get in an organization. It's not only about the numbers, about the money, and that is where you can retain talent. That's an excellent answer. Empathy is one of the biggest quality for a leadership level of thinking and mindset. And one more important thing is being approachable. Wherever you feel that you're stuck, I think that's what leadership try to unblock all those things. So Sumit, it was being informed that you were the first employee at PKF. You handled multiple roles, and from 22 plus, you have gone to 200 plus. What is the secret of that scaling strategy, and why do you think that scaling is such an important phenomenon also? Correct. So again, scaling is a very dynamic word. Correct. I know a lot of new generation folks. They talk about scaling. They are talk only they are into numbers. Correct. Okay, this firm is hiring 400 people. They will reach 500, 600. Correct. But I would say that rather than talking about or rather than focusing upon numbers, it is very important that what work is being done in India. Correct. That is very important. We as a firm, we were very much inclined, or we were very much aligned with our thought process when we started these operations in India, that we want to create a strong foundation for our employees. We don't want to hire 500 600 people in 1 year, and there might be 100 200 does not work out, we fire that. That's not the culture what PKF want to do with today's. We wanted to build, we want to grow slow and steadily with a strong foundation. That is the reason in the past 3-4 years we have grown from, as you mentioned, 20-22 people with around 220 20-30 230 odd numbers as of now. We could have also easily grown to 500, but ultimately, if you're not sending quality work to India, nobody's gonna stay with you. Correct. So it is important that you rather than focusing on numbers, you focus on the quality of work. That is what PKF Quality believes in. So when you tell that from 20 also you went to 200, that is almost like 10 times of the size. So how did you achieve that number? So it's a gradual process. So what happens is, like as I mentioned, like we started off with tax services, and then slowly audit. So it's more about, I would say, it was not about going out in the market and selling yourself to get more business. Because as we are a captive unit, it was more about transitioning work from US to India. Correct. And it was more about how well or what level of confidence can you provide to your counterparts, to your managers, directors, and partners in US. So if you do a good quality work, if you do good work, definitely, I would say that this is a very important statement. Word of mouth publicity. Correct. So word of mouth publicity is very important in US offices. If one partner has started sending work to India, he is amazed. He is very happy with the quality of work, what is being sent back from India. To all of that. Exactly. That is where work starts flowing in. As I mentioned, we started off with a very small 4 team members. As far as tax is concerned, they did a good job. We started getting more work. We automatically, recruited more employees. The same thing happened with audit. We started off with 2 people. In fact, way back in 2022, in January 2022, we just hired 2 people in our audit segment. Okay, and then due to word mouth publicity, like they were so happy with the quality of work which India was giving them. All the other I would say the partner in charges of different audit departments started reaching out to me. These financial services, non-for-profit, private foundation, commercial audit, low-income housing. All the audit partners started reaching out to me that we want to establish our own department in India as well.
So that shows how powerful the work was getting.
Exactly, and that is very important that you hire the right resources because you are not going to get unlimited opportunities to prove yourself. First impression is the last impression.
Fantastic. This is one of the best answers I've ever seen. How to scale a global operations in India? The answer is very simple, guys, is to do quality work. It's all about quality. The more quality it is, the more easily you scale your company as well.
Absolutely, you don't have to, if you provide quality work, you don't have to, run to get additional work. The work would automatically flow in.
Fantastic, Sumit. So, but do you think now going to one of the major segments of this podcast is there's a lot of confusion among the aspirants. Should they go for a CA? Should they go for an MBA? Should they go for CPA or CFA? What do you think? Which qualification is the best?
I would say that it all depends on individual to individual. I would say that as of today, if somebody wants to get into, they are very focused. They are very clear that they want to get into a CPA focused firm, similar to PKF or Warner Davis. I would say that doing a CPA would be equivalent to becoming a chartered accountant.
Okay.
Okay, the kind of salaries what CPA firms are offering to a CPA versus chartered accountants are almost the same. Okay, and then a CPA, person can become a CPA once he has done his graduation. Correct, you have initiatives like Simandar who are training or training thousands of employees to be students for becoming a CPA. So I would definitely say that it all depends on individual to individual. If their focus or their focus is very clear, they've already made up their mind that they want to join a CPA firm, then definitely do CPA.
Okay. And what about CFA? Is CA on?
Again, I would say that start off with CPA or EA, and then might be step on doing CFA as well.
And do you think, Sumit, that the global qualification like CPA, CFA, CMA, are they very undervalued in a country like India?
I would say that was the scenario a couple of years back, but the situation is changing year on year. And because of lot of CPA firms, lot of GCCs, lot of captives opening up in India in the last 3-4 years. So the environment has changed now. Now people do understand what CPA, what EA, what CIMA can bring on the table. So definitely the scenario is changing, and I would say that students as well, now they are more informed. Correct. Like might be 5 or 6 years down the line, people were not even aware there is a course kind of like CPA.
Correct.
But that is not the situation now. Correct. They have so many opportunities, and firms like PKF or Warner Davis as well. Like we have employees in our firm who are chartered accountants and who are simultaneously they've enrolled themselves for CPAs as well.
Exactly.
Correct.
So few of them are from Sanandar only.
Exactly.
So how is that, Sumit, that if a parent is there, how do you convince him or convince the parent if they want to guide their child? So what should they do?
Again, you can give them live examples. Correct. Lot of your students are working for firms like us and other competitive firms. Correct. So definitely, giving them live examples would definitely make a big impact. They can themselves see that after becoming a CPA, they've already working, they're already getting paid well. Correct. They're looked upon differently. Correct. It's a professional work. Correct. They get opportunities to work on US clients. They get opportunity to travel to US. So what else they want? Correct. So I would say that again, word of mouth publicity and giving them live examples are the best thing to tell them.
Thank you so much, Sumit. That was completely insightful end to end.
Thank you.
So, Sumit, are you all set for a rapid fire with us?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, we have a first question from rapid fire. One book that shaped your thinking.
There are quite few, but the one of my favorite books are, it's a very popular book, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Mr. Robert Kiyosaki. Okay, so I would take, if you want, I can give you the summary. Like, it has, although that book, emphasis on financial freedom and it talks about being financially free. Okay, but it's more about shifting your mindset altogether. And as a leader, definitely, thinking differently in different situations, in different scenarios is very important. So that book has really helped me in taking decisions at very critical junctions of life.
Awesome. What a role model you look up to?
As I said, there are a couple of role models.
Yes.
Mr. Kevin Keane and Mr. Mark Rinaldi.
Awesome. One misconception about global careers from India.
Misconception might be, the India lack or education system lack more practical, knowledge.
Awesome. If you had to describe PK40 India in one word, what would it be?
Culture and family.
Awesome. If you would put one line on billboard outside Simandar headquarters, what would it be?
Think CPA, think Simandar.
Audit or tax?
Audit,
Fund administration or tax?
fund administration,
Advisory or tax?
advisory.
Okay. What's your hobbies? आपके क्या है सुमन?
My hobbies are more about, meeting, traveling. I like to travel to a lot of new places and, meeting people and discussing, investments are like my hobby. I discuss a lot of different investment opportunities, different, financial instruments available. So that's my hobby.
Okay. So one last question, Sumit. If you were not working in PK40, then where would you be?
My family business. So now, Shripal, like, I want to put you on the other side of the table now, and I want to ask you a couple of questions. Are you ready?
100% Sumit.
Thank you. So, Shripal, like Simandar as an institute, you guys train or mentor thousands of students every year. So, what, according to you, is the biggest challenge or struggles you face?
I think the biggest challenge what I see is students assume that they know Excel, they know communication skills, and they think that passing exam is everything. I think that's the misconception students need to change, and that's where we are facing a lot of struggles to make them understand that just passing an exam is not sufficient. I think along with passing the exam, like you mentioned, communication skills, storytelling, critical thinking, design thinking, I think all these are very, very important skill set. Most of the students assume that these are given, but that's not something I feel that is so easily you can develop that. And that's where the mindset in Indian students I've seen a lot that passing the exam is everything for them. So that misconception is what we are trying to change, and it's taking a lot of time for that.
And then, are you guys taking any efforts to inculcate some of those missing elements what you talked about, Excel, communication, in your curriculum?
So what we are doing, Sumit, is we have brought a Power BI program and an Excel program. So we have an AI program also at Samandar. So where we cover the dynamics of Excel, Power BI, Tableau. We also cover the basic SQL skills also in that. And we are trying to make them more upskilled in that. And then we have the basic communication skills. So previously we used to have something called as Samandar Samarth course, and that got changed to Finance for Non-Finance. And now we have a Pathway to Big Four flagship program. So that's where we are kind of molding them and making them completely job ready. So I think, and along with that, we also have something called as entrepreneurship skills. So where we are training them how to fill the tax forms. We are also training them on tax software like Drake. So we have something called as practical US tax program put. So whereby firms like you can see that these guys have some practical skills also. They are just not coming with theoretical stuff. So we have inbuilt that something called as upskill program, or in other words, skillfluence, where we are adding all these skills in them so that they are not just having the theoretical knowledge, they also have the tax forms, tax filing, software knowledge also.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. And in terms of, if I want to compare, US courses like CPA or EA, and want to compare them with other courses like Chartered Accountant. Okay. Now there are a lot of folks in India, correct, who are not financially, good. They belong to a lower, segment of the society. Correct. And CPA courses or US based courses are generally more expensive as compared to. So do you think, how, institutes like Simandar or other institutes, you know, can do something in reducing the prices, or can, come together and do some, do you do any CSR activity wherein some underprivileged students are also given equal opportunities to become an CPA and become, can step into the corporate world and give a better lifestyle to their families?
So I think at Samandar, that's the title. So we're changing lives for better. And one very important life change was Ankur's story. I always tell in each and every podcast because he was a Zomato delivery boy, delivering pizzas and all. And then we made him to get internship at Infosys. He got a full-time job at Infosys post doing his US CMA. Then he went on to do his 2 years he worked at Infosys, got the best debutant award, and now he's doing IIM from, he's doing an MBA from IIM Kozhikode. So I think that are some of the transforming stories which we are doing. So we are trying to reduce the cost by making them to get certain internships. And that is one way of kind of ensuring that whatever investment they have done, they get it. And I'm glad that PKF also is offering internships.
Right.
And that is something where the students could recover the cost. Second important thing is we are in consistent talks with AICTE. We are talking to them consistently to reduce the fees because rather they've increased the fees a few months back. And now I had a meeting with them a couple of weeks back and looks very positive because I said that if they want to kind of scale the Indian market, it cannot happen without reducing the cost. And they are also very positive about it. So we are talking to a lot of regulatory authorities as well. We are doing consistent meetings with them. I was in Engage in Las Vegas. We discussed about that and I got that 40 under 40 award. I happened to meet a lot of the AICP people there and spoke a lot about it. So you might see that the cost might get reduced for these exams in the nearby future. And the third important thing on with respect to the CSR activities, we are also giving scholarships to the people who aren't able to afford, provided there are certain TNCs which apply. So we need to see their ration card and all those things, their what is their income levels and all, and then we give those scholarships also to those deserving candidates.
Thank you. Great. And like the last question from my side would be, again, there are a lot of institutes like Simandar in the market, correct? So as a student, if somebody wants to, they are in a dilemma that, I want to go with Simandar or an institute B or an institute C. So what are, what are the things which, makes Simandar stand out as compared to other institutes?
I think only one thing, I would not name 20 things because it will look more like I'm boasting about Samandar. I think one thing what Samandar has is their obsession towards students. So we are a very, very student facing institute and sales first institute. Our intent is not to talk about commercials. Our intent is to talk about how we can change their lives. So the focus is to make them Sumit. Focus is not to make them just get a job in PKF. I want to see them how they can grow as a leader like Sumit. So this is not a center for coaching or training or anything. This is a center for transformation. So they need to come here. They are coming like a fresher. They will end up their career like a leader or a big full partner or a Sumit, I would say. So they will own that particular company, and that's where our vision is. So I think that's what you would see from Samandar is lot of focus towards students and the service and the quality. We are very, very fast in responding to anything. We also launched something called as Digital Sripal Sumit. And Digital Sripal is like an chatbot. So it has passed CPA, CMA, CIAE exams with 95% accuracy. So it's a WhatsApp AI bot. The moment you put a question, you will get the answers in seconds. So that's where our responses to see, everyone can develop AI chatbots. You also know it's not such a big thing to develop a bot. But how many of them have done for the student community? So I think we are the first ones who do for the student community. And I think we have also some very, very good content in name of Becker, which is one of the top acclaimed. So almost 1 million students have prepared their CPSC exams with Becker. So that is one of the, I would say, biggest USP along with our live classes, our teaching and all. And these are some of the things which some of the particularly focuses on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, Sumit. Thank you so much.